In a candle-lit palace at the height of the Renaissance, wine flowed, laughter echoed, and daggers waited. Florence's most powerful gathered for a feast meant to honor alliance, but hidden beneath silver platters and golden goblets was a plan soaked in betrayal. The Medici thought they were celebrating friendship. Instead, they were walking into an ambush that would leave nearly everyone dead. Except for one man, a fool in a jester's cap who saw everything. What did he witness that night? And why was he the only one to survive? Comment. If you'd toast or run, like. If you love tales of twisted betrayal, and subscribe. To unmask more deadly secrets, history tried to forget. The great hall of Palazzo Medici shimmers under the warm glow of 1,000 candles, their flames dancing like spirits across the frescoed walls that tell stories of ancient gods and forgotten kingdoms. The year is 1478, and Florence breathes with the rhythm of Renaissance grandeur, where art and poison flow with equal elegance through marble corridors. Tonight, the most powerful families of Italy gather around a table that will become a tomb, their laughter echoing through chambers that will soon know only silence. Lorenzo de' Medici raises his goblet, the crimson wine catching the light like liquid rubies, while his guests lean forward in anticipation of his words. The Pazzi family sits with practiced smiles, their hands steady despite the tremor of conspiracy that runs through their blood like winter frost. Archbishop Salviati nods graviously, his clerical robes hiding the daggers of ambition that pierce his soul. Count Riario watches from beneath heavy lids, calculating each breath, each gesture, each moment that separates life from death. But in the shadows, where darkness meets the flickering light, stands a figure that history will remember, not for his nobility or wealth, but for his survival. Drolerie, the court jester, his bells silent for once, observes with eyes that have learned to see beyond the masks that powerful men wear. His painted smile hides a mind sharp as any blade, and tonight, that mind will be the only witness to a tragedy that will reshape the very foundations of Italian power. The first course arrives with ceremonial pomp, silver platters bearing delicacies that represent months of preparation and the finest ingredients that gold can procure. Roasted peacock stuffed with exotic spices from distant lands, its feathers restored to create an illusion of life even in death. Wild boar glazed with honey and herbs that perfume the air with promises of indulgence. Fresh figs from the Mediterranean coast, their sweetness hiding secrets that only the cook and his employer know. Lorenzo speaks of art and philosophy, his voice carrying the passion that has made him the unofficial king of Florence, though he wears no crown. He discusses Botticelli's latest masterpiece, the way light captures divine beauty in mortal flesh, how marble can be convinced to breathe under the right hands. His words paint pictures more vivid than any fresco, and his guests listen with the rapt attention of those who understand that culture and power are merely different faces of the same golden coin. Giuliano de' Medici, Lorenzo's younger brother, laughs with the easy joy of a man who has never known betrayal, his handsome face unmarked by the suspicions that line the features of older, wiser men. He raises his own cup in a toast to friendship, to family, to the bonds that tie great houses together in webs of mutual prosperity. The wine flows like blood through goblets that gleam with the reflected light of chandeliers, and for a moment the hall fills with the warm contentment of successful men sharing successful pleasures. Francesco Pazzi's fingers drum against the table's edge with nervous energy, a rhythm that speaks of hearts beating too fast and plans set in motion that cannot be recalled. His uncle, Archbishop Salviati, maintains his ecclesiastical composure, but beneath his calm exterior, ambition writhes like a serpent fed on promises from Rome itself. They have sworn oaths to Pope Sixtus IV, oaths that demand blood in exchange for favor, and tonight those oaths will be honored regardless of the cost to their souls. The jester moves between the tables like a ghost, his traditional role allowing him access to conversations that would be forbidden to any other servant. He refills wine, adjusts candles, and performs the countless small services that make grand occasions possible, all while his ears absorb the whispered words that float between courses like deadly perfume. He hears fragments of conspiracy, pieces of a puzzle that forms a picture too terrible to fully comprehend until it becomes too late to prevent. Count Girolamo Riario speaks in measured tones about the future of the Papal States, his words carrying the weight of Vatican authority and the implicit threat that comes with papal displeasure. He mentions trade routes and territorial disputes with the casual air of a man discussing the weather, but every word carries the sharp edge of ultimatum. The Medici bank's influence has grown too great, he suggests, its reach too extensive for the comfort of those who prefer their power more concentrated and controllable. The second course arrives amid fanfare that masks the tension building like storm clouds around the table. Platters of fresh fish from the Arno, their scales still glistening with river water, prepared with techniques that transform simple ingredients into culinary art. Vegetables carved into flowers that bloom on porcelain plates, their colors rivaling the stained glass windows of the greatest cathedrals. Bread baked in shapes that honor both Christian symbolism and pagan tradition, the ancient and modern coexisting in edible harmony. Drolerie notices the subtle signals passing between the conspirators, glances that carry the weight of shared secrets and imminent action. A touch to the nose that means the time approaches. Her adjustment of a ring that confirms readiness. A slight nod that acknowledges the point of no return has been reached. These are the languages that power speaks when it believes itself unobserved, and the Jester has learned to read these dialects with the fluency of a scholar. Lorenzo continues his discourse on beauty and truth, unaware that his words may be among the last that his guests will hear spoken with genuine passion rather than calculated effect. He quotes Plato and Aristotle, weaving classical wisdom into observations about contemporary politics with the skill of a man educated in both books and experience. His intelligence shines like polished metal, reflecting the learning that has made Florence the intellectual center of the known world. The wine continues to flow, and with it, the inhibitions that normally keep dangerous thoughts carefully hidden begin to dissolve like salt in water. Francesco Pazzi's laughter becomes strained, carrying undertones of hysteria that suggest a man approaching the edge of an abyss from which there will be no return. His hand shakes slightly as he lifts his goblet, and wine spills onto the white linen like drops of prophecy written in crimson ink. Archbishop Salviati begins to speak of divine justice and the mysterious ways in which providence works to correct imbalances in the mortal world. His words carry the authority of religious conviction, but underneath the theological language runs a current of justification for actions that would normally be considered mortal sins. He speaks of the greater good and the necessity of sacrifice, his voice taking on the cadence of a man preparing to offer absolution for sins not yet committed. The hall fills with the aroma of the third course, exotic spices that carry the scent of distant empires and trade routes that span continents. Cinnamon from Ceylon, pepper from India, saffron from the mysterious East, all combining to create fragrances that speak of wealth beyond the dreams of common men. The very air becomes intoxicating, heavy with promise and rich with the evidence of Medici prosperity that has grown to rival that of kings. Count Riario's stories of military campaigns in the northern territories carry subtle warnings about the price of opposing papal authority. He describes sieges and battles with the detached interest of a man recounting chess moves, but his listeners understand that these tales are not mere entertainment. They are reminders of what happens to those who place personal ambition above the will of the Holy See, lessons written in blood on the pages of recent history. Drolerie feels the weight of knowledge settling on his shoulders like a cloak made of shadows and dread. He has pieced together enough fragments of conversation to understand that tonight will end in violence, that the laughter and wine are merely the prelude to a symphony that will crescendo in screams and the metallic taste of blood. Yet his position as fool protects him through the strange alchemy that makes truth-tellers invisible when they wear motley and bells. The fourth course brings delicacies that represent the pinnacle of culinary art, dishes that require days of preparation, and ingredients worth more than most men earn in years. Roasted swan stuffed with herbs and precious spices, its neck arranged to give the illusion of life even in death. Elaborate pastries shaped like architectural marvels, edible buildings that mirror the real palazzos rising throughout Florence. Sugar sculptures that capture mythological scenes in crystalline perfection, art that will dissolve on the tongue, but live forever in memory. Lorenzo's brother Giuliano speaks of love and romance with the earnest passion of youth, describing a lady whose beauty has captured his heart and whose virtue has elevated his soul. His words paint pictures of courtship and devotion that belong to the world of troubadours and poets, innocent of the calculation that drives most noble marriages. His sincerity creates a stark contrast to the artifice that surrounds him, making his eventual fate seem even more cruel and senseless. The conspirators exchange glances that carry the weight of final confirmations and irrevocable decisions. Francesco Pazzi touches the hilt of the dagger concealed beneath his doublet, feeling its weight like a physical manifestation of his family's honor and ambition. The blade has been blessed by the Archbishop himself, transformed from mere steel into an instrument of divine justice, or so they have convinced themselves in the long nights of planning that have led to this moment. Archbishop Salviati begins to speak of the mysteries of communion and the transformation of simple bread and wine into the body and blood of the divine. His words carry layers of meaning that extend far beyond their theological content, speaking to the transformation that is about to occur in this hall, the way that feast will become funeral and celebration will become catastrophe. The sacred and profane intertwine like lovers in his discourse, creating a web of justification for actions that will stain souls for eternity. The jester moves through the increasingly charged atmosphere, like a man walking through a battlefield before the armies charge. He can smell the fear hidden beneath perfume and bravado, can hear the tremor in voices that speak of ordinary things while planning extraordinary violence. His painted smile becomes a mask that hides not humor but horror, the terrible knowledge of what is about to unfold in this room, filled with art and learning and civilization. Count Riario raises his goblet in a toast to friendship and alliance, his words carrying the bitter irony of betrayal spoken aloud. He speaks of the bonds that tie great families together and the importance of loyalty in a world where trust is the most precious and fragile of commodities. His listeners drink to these sentiments even as they prepare to shatter them like fine crystal dropped on marble floors. The fifth course arrives with even greater ceremony, as if the kitchen staff sense that this meal requires special attention, that it will be remembered long after the plates are cleared and the candles extinguished. Elaborate meat pies shaped like heraldic beasts, their crusts painted with egg wash and decorated with edible gold leaf that catches the light like trapped sunshine. Roasted vegetables arranged in patterns that mirror the geometric perfection of Renaissance architecture, art rendered in ingredients that will nourish the body even as beauty feeds the soul. Lorenzo speaks of the future with the confidence of a man who believes he will live to see it, describing plans for new buildings and artistic commissions that will further establish Florence's reputation as the cultural center of the world. His vision encompasses decades of growth and achievement, generations of prosperity built on the foundation of wisdom and careful alliances. The tragic irony of his words creates a tension that even those not privy to the conspiracy can feel like electricity in the air before a storm. Francesco Pazzi's breathing becomes shallow and rapid, the physiological signs of a man approaching the moment when thought must transform into action. His pupils dilate despite the bright candlelight, his body preparing for violence, even as his mind struggles with the magnitude of what he is about to attempt. The weight of family honor and papal approval cannot entirely suppress the natural human reluctance to commit murder among friends and allies. The Archbishop continues his theological discourse, weaving together concepts of justice and necessity with the skill of a man educated in both canon law and practical politics. He speaks of the divine right of the Church to correct temporal imbalances and the way that earthly suffering can serve heavenly purposes. His words create a framework that transforms assassination into sacrament, murder into martyrdom for those who will die and those who will kill. Drolerie notices the way conversations have begun to fragment and repeat, the normal flow of dinner discourse disrupted by the undercurrents of tension that run beneath the surface civility. Guests speak past each other rather than to each other, their attention divided between maintaining appearances and preparing for actions that will make appearances irrelevant. The very air seems to thicken with unspoken intentions and suppressed violence. Count Riario begins to describe a recent execution he witnessed in Rome, his words painting vivid pictures of justice served and traitors punished with the full authority of papal power. His tale serves as both entertainment and warning, a reminder of what happens to those who place personal ambition above the greater good, as defined by those who hold ultimate authority. The description of suffering becomes a prophecy of suffering soon to be inflicted. The sixth course brings the meal to its zenith of luxury and excess, dishes that represent not merely food, but statements of power and wealth that few in the world can afford to make. A roasted peacock, reclothed in its own feathers and presented as if still alive, its beak gilded and its eyes replaced with precious gems that reflect the candlelight like living fire. Elaborate confections that blur the line between cuisine and sculpture, edible art that demonstrates the transformation of raw materials into objects of beauty through human skill and creativity. Lorenzo raises his goblet once more, this time in a toast to the eternal bonds of friendship and the sacred trust that exists between families who have shared both prosperity and adversity. His words carry the weight of genuine emotion, the kind of sincerity that makes betrayal not just wrong, but a violation of something fundamental to human nature. The wine in his cup gleams like liquid garnets, beautiful and rich and soon to be spilled across marble floors in patterns that speak of violence rather than celebration. Giuliano speaks of his plans for tomorrow, describing a hunting expedition that will take him into the countryside beyond Florence, where he hopes to find both sport and the kind of natural beauty that inspires artists and poets. His anticipation of future pleasures creates a poignant contrast to the immediate danger that surrounds him, the way that hope and doom can coexist in the same moment, like light and shadow cast by the same flame. The conspirators steel themselves for action with the kind of deep breathing and mental preparation that soldiers use before battle. Francesco Pazzi grips his dagger's handle beneath the table, feeling its familiar weight and testing the ease with which it can be drawn from its sheath. The archbishop murmurs what might be prayers, or might be incantations, his lips moving in silent rhythm with thoughts too dark to be spoken aloud. Drolerie realizes that the moment of truth approaches like thunder following lightning, inevitable and destructive and impossible to prevent. His position as entertainer has given him perfect knowledge of what is about to occur, while leaving him powerless to intervene without destroying the very anonymity that keeps him safe. He becomes a living paradox, the most informed and least influential person in a room full of powerful men about to engage in deadly conflict. The seventh course arrives as conversations begin to take on the desperate quality of last words, though only some of those present understand the significance of what they are saying. Elaborate soufflés that rise like architectural marvels, their delicate structure a metaphor for the fragility of human achievement in the face of sudden violence. Fresh fruits arranged in patterns that mirror the painted ceilings above, as if the entire room has been designed to reflect itself in an endless series of artistic mirrors. Count Riario stands slowly, his movement attracting attention despite its apparent casualness. He speaks of the need to inspect the Palazzo's defenses, suggesting that recent reports of bandits in the countryside require additional precautions for the safety of such distinguished guests. His words carry the double meaning that has become the currency of this evening, practical suggestions that mask deadly intentions. Lorenzo responds with the gracious hospitality that has made him famous throughout Italy, offering to personally conduct a tour of the building's security measures and architectural innovations. His generosity becomes another layer of tragic irony, the way that virtue and trust can become weapons in the hands of those who understand how to exploit them. The very qualities that make him beloved also make him vulnerable. Francesco Pazzi's hand moves to his weapon, with the kind of trembling that suggests a man crossing a line from which there can be no return. The dagger feels alive in his grip, warm with the heat of his palm, and heavy with the weight of family honor and papal approval. The moment stretches like heated metal, malleable and dangerous, and ready to take whatever shape violence will give it. The archbishop rises from his seat with the dignity befitting his ecclesiastical rank, his movement creating a subtle signal that those who understand the plan recognize as the beginning of the end. His words of blessing over the feast take on new meaning when understood as potential last rites, the way that sacred language can serve profane purposes when spoken by men who have learned to make God serve their earthly ambitions. The eighth course brings delicacies so rare and precious that their very presence at the table represents months of planning and enormous expense. Truffles found by specially trained pigs in the forests of Umbria, their earthy aroma speaking of mysteries hidden beneath the ground, like secrets waiting to be unearthed. Caviar from the distant Black Sea, each tiny sphere bursting with the taste of waters that few of these diners will ever see, but all can afford to bring to their tables. Drolerie watches the final preparations unfold, with the helpless fascination of a man witnessing an earthquake or flood, natural disasters that demonstrate the powerlessness of human will in the face of overwhelming force. The conspiracy has gained its own momentum, becoming larger than any individual participant and as inevitable as gravity. He sees death approaching the table like an uninvited guest who cannot be turned away. Lorenzo continues to speak of beauty and truth with the passion that has made him one of the most celebrated minds of his generation, unaware that his words are being weighed against the gold and political power that his enemies believe outweigh any intellectual achievement. His discourse on the nature of divine inspiration in human creativity becomes an ironic counterpoint to the inspiration that drives his would-be assassins. Count Riario makes his excuses to visit the Palazzo's battlements, claiming a soldier's interest in fortification and defense that provides perfect cover for more sinister purposes. His departure creates the first crack in the evening's facade of normalcy, a subtle disruption that those sensitive to such things notice like the first drop of rain before a storm. The ninth course arrives as tension fills the hall like smoke from green wood, acrid and choking, despite the continued attempts to maintain normal conversation. Roasted game birds stuffed with exotic ingredients that represent the conquest of distance and the transformation of wild creatures into civilized pleasure. The very act of consumption becomes a metaphor for the evening's larger themes, the way that civilization depends on violence hidden beneath ritual and ceremony. Francesco Pazzi recedes abruptly, his chair scraping against marble with a sound like fingernails on stone. He claims the need for fresh air and invites Giuliano to join him in a walk through the Palazzo's gardens, where the night breeze might provide relief from the heat generated by so many candles and so much rich food. His invitation carries the weight of friendship and the hidden blade of betrayal. Giuliano accepts with the easy grace of a man who has never learned to suspect evil in others. His trust, a reflection of the kind of character that makes betrayal both possible and particularly cruel. He speaks of the beauty of moonlight on marble statuary and the way that gardens reveal different secrets by night than they do by day. Innocent words that will soon prove prophetic in ways he cannot imagine. The Archbishop begins to speak of the need for confession and the cleansing of souls before sleep, his suggestion carrying religious authority that makes refusal difficult even for those who might prefer to avoid spiritual examination. His words create a framework for separation, the tactical division of potential victims that military science recommends for successful ambush. Lorenzo expresses interest in examining some recently acquired manuscripts in the Palazzo's library, ancient texts that represent the kind of scholarly treasure that drives his passion for learning and discovery. His enthusiasm for knowledge becomes another weapon in the hands of those who understand how to exploit intellectual curiosity for deadly purposes. The 10th course brings the meal to a crescendo of luxury that borders on the obscene, dishes so elaborate and expensive that they represent more wealth than most people will see in their entire lives. Golden plates bearing delicacies that have been transported across continents, preserved in precious oils and adorned with spices that cost more than precious gems. The very excess becomes a statement about power and the ability to transform resources into pleasure. Drolerie realizes that the moment of action can no longer be delayed, that the careful choreography of assassination is entering its final movements. He sees the conspirators take their positions like actors in a play, each moving to their assigned place with the precision that comes from careful rehearsal and absolute commitment to their roles. Francesco Pazzi's breathing becomes the quick, shallow rhythm of a man preparing for extreme physical exertion, his body flooding with the chemicals that prepare humans for violence. His hand finds the dagger's grip with the automatic precision of a musician finding the correct key, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought becomes too slow and uncertain. The 11th course arrives amid an atmosphere so charged with tension that even the servants begin to move with the careful precision of people who sense danger without understanding its source. Elaborate desserts that represent the transformation of simple ingredients into edible art, sugar and flour and eggs becoming sculptures that rival anything carved from marble or cast in bronze. Lorenzo stands to offer a final toast, his goblet raised high enough to catch the light from every candle in the hall. His words speak of eternal friendship and the bonds that tie great souls together across the petty divisions that separate lesser men. The wine in his cup trembles slightly, whether from the movement of his hand or the vibration of approaching doom. The Archbishop begins the Latin phrases that could be either blessing or curse, depending on the intentions of the speaker, and the fate of the listeners. His words carry the weight of ecclesiastical authority and the terrible power of language to transform reality through the mere act of speaking. Sacred syllables become profane through the alchemy of murderous intent. Count Riario returns to the hall with news of strangers observed near the palazzo's walls, armed men whose presence suggests either robbery or worse. His words create the justification for violence that civil law requires, the transformation of murder into self-defense through careful preparation and strategic deception. Giuliano moves toward the gardens with Francesco Pazzi at his side, their conversation focused on matters of art and beauty that will continue until steel finds flesh and transforms dialogue into death cry. The moonlight that will illuminate their walk casts shadows that hide both natural beauty and unnatural violence. The 12th and final course brings the feast to its conclusion, with delicacies so precious and rare that their consumption represents not just wealth, but the kind of power that can command treasures from across the known world. Yet even as the greatest luxuries are presented, the real feast begins as conspiracy transforms from plan into action. The first scream pierces the night air like a blade through silk, beautiful and terrible and absolutely final. It comes from the garden where friendship dies beneath moon and stars, where trust becomes the medium through which betrayal travels from heart to heart. The sound carries through marble corridors with the clarity of a bell tolling the end of innocence. Lorenzo's goblet falls from suddenly nerveless fingers, wine spreading across white marble like blood that has not yet been spilled, but soon will be. His face transforms from curiosity to understanding to horror in the space between heartbeats. The terrible comprehension that friendship was always a mask worn by enemies, patient enough to wait for the perfect moment to remove it. Francesco Pazzi's dagger finds its mark with the precision that comes from careful planning and divine blessing, if such blessing can be called divine when it serves such earthly purposes. The blade slides between ribs like a key fitting a lock, opening the door between life and death, with the kind of ease that suggests long practice or supernatural guidance. The Archbishop's Latin phrases reach their crescendo as chaos erupts throughout the hall, his voice rising above screams and the clash of steel on steel like a conductor, directing an orchestra of violence. His words transform the massacre from mere murder into sacrament, assassination into sacrifice, offered on the altar of political necessity. Count Riario's soldiers pour through doorways that had been guarded by men now dead or dying, their weapons gleaming in candlelight as they move with the efficiency of professionals, executing a carefully rehearsed plan. The Palazzo becomes a battlefield, where art and culture provide the backdrop for the kind of violence that destroys both in the pursuit of power. Lorenzo fights with the desperate skill of a man who understands that survival depends on violence he has never wanted to embrace. His sword, drawn from its ceremonial scabbard, transforms from decoration into lifeline as he cuts his way through enemies who had been dining at his table moments before. Blood mingles with wine on marble floors, as friendship dies in the currency of steel and suffering. The servants flee in terror or fall beneath weapons that make no distinction between combatant and bystander, their deaths serving as punctuation marks in a story written in violence and ambition. The palazzo that had been filled with laughter and learning becomes a tomb where culture suffocates beneath the weight of political necessity. Through all the chaos and carnage, one figure moves untouched among the dying and the dead. Drolerie, the court jester, his bells silent and his painted smile unchanged, navigates the battlefield with the supernatural protection that tradition grants to fools and madmen. His motley becomes better armor than steel, his laughter more powerful than any weapon. The conspiracy that had been planned as surgical removal of specific threats becomes wholesale slaughter, as violence takes on its own momentum and seeks its own victims. The careful distinctions between friend and enemy dissolve in blood, as dark passion overwhelms cold calculation. The palazzo becomes a monument to the way that political ambition can transform civilization into barbarism in the space of a single evening. Lorenzo's escape through secret passages, known only to the palazzo's builders, represents not just physical survival, but the preservation of something larger than any individual life. His flight carries with it the hope that beauty and learning will survive the night's darkness, that tomorrow might see the rebuilding of what tonight destroys. The bodies of the conspirators mingle with those of their victims in the final democracy of death, where noble blood and common blood flow together across marble floors without distinction. Francesco Pazzi and Archbishop Salviati discover that martyrdom and murder wear the same face when viewed from the perspective of eternity. Count Riario's ultimate victory proves hollow as he surveys a palazzo that has become a charnel house, where art and culture lie broken beneath the weight of political necessity. His triumph over the Medici comes at the cost of everything that made Florence worth conquering, leaving him master of ruins rather than ruler of Renaissance. Yet in the shadows where death's dominion seems absolute, life persists in the most unlikely form. The court jester, witness to everything and victim of nothing, becomes the living repository of the evening's truth. His survival transforms him from entertainer into chronicler, from fool into sage, from powerless observer into the most powerful voice that history will remember. The bells of Florence toll the death of innocence and the birth of a new age where trust becomes liability and friendship becomes the most dangerous luxury. The Renaissance that had promised the elevation of human nature reveals its shadow side, where classical learning serves assassination and religious authority blesses political murder. As dawn breaks over a city that will never again be quite what it was, one figure walks among the dead with the strange serenity of the truly innocent. Drolerie, the fool who survived because fools traditionally speak truth that power cannot hear, becomes the keeper of a story that will outlive all the princes and prelates who died for it. His laughter, silent through the night of knives, will echo through history as the only authentic response to the deadly comedy of human ambition. In a world where the wise died and the powerful fell, only the fool remained to tell the tale. The knives were drawn, the blood was spilled, and the Renaissance itself trembled. But as the great and powerful fell one by one, it wasn't the prince, the Pope's men, or the plotters who survived. It was the jester, Drolerie, the silent fool who watched the night unravel, lived to tell the truth no one else could. In a world where power meant death, it was madness that made him immortal. Comment what you think happened after. Like if you're still haunted by this banquet, and subscribe for more true stories where the fool outlives the king.